We're going to analyze a particular movie, The Wild Robot. And I thought it would be fun to start doing a series where I do analyze shows, movies, cultural events through the lens of social anxiety, people pleasing, self sabotage, toxic shame, so on and so forth. I think it's interesting to be able to dissect a particular fictional character and take away something from their journey, from their experience, and apply it to our lives. Now, there are only a few movies that take you on a full roller coaster of emotions and leave you thinking about them for days after. And so this was my experience with The Wild Robot. I actually went into this movie empty-headed. I was just there to enjoy the graphics, the beautiful music, and the storyline, right? Because I had actually read all three of the books within the trilogy. I had read them to my kid and I was like, oh my God, now the movie is out. I need to take him. I was really excited for him to experience this story, like more in a live situation, I guess. So I didn't really think anything of it, except from the moment it started, all I could think about was social anxiety, because there's so many themes surrounding social anxiety that I told myself, I need to make mental notes and I need to write this out the moment I get home. And so let me tell you, the themes, the lessons, the moments of connection in the movie, they really hit you hard when you start to compare them with what it feels like to live with self-doubt, fear of judgment, and that nagging voice of toxic shame, which ultimately spirals into and manifests itself as social anxiety. So today I want to share 5 lessons from the movie The Wild Robot that I think we can all carry into our own lives, especially if you've ever felt like you were the outcast, the misunderstood one, or the person that is trying to figure things out while everyone else seems to have the manual, right? Everyone else knows how to do life except you. I felt that for the longest time ever. And let me tell you, and I'm sure you know, it's quite debilitating. There's no worse feeling than feeling insecure about, well, everything. Quick disclaimer before we dive in, there will be spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, consider saving this episode and then coming back after you've watched the film or even read the books. So let's meet Roz. Roz is the main character, right? So she's a robot that was swept away in a storm and she ended up being stranded on an island. All the other robots on the container ship were just dismantled, disintegrated by the rough waves and the storm. But she made it. So the movie is basically from her point of view the entire time. And so we come to find out that she was designed to help families with their chores and their errands, so on and so forth. She's basically the robot that we all want to have, not this AI crap that's being shoved down our throats. Like, we just want someone to help us in the damn house. But anyway, I digress. Here's the thing. On this island, no one was there to give her any directions. There was no human being that was going to say, hey, can you do my dishes? Can you fold my laundry? Can you pick up my kids? No one was giving her directions. So there was no manual. There was no client, basically, and no task list. That's kind of hard for a robot, right? It's hard for us as human beings, just not having a direction, not knowing what we're supposed to do. It just leaves you like flabbergasted and frozen, I guess. She had to figure things out on her own. And that's not really something that a robot is programmed to do. And so that brings me to lesson number 1. You will figure things out by taking action. So Roz didn't just sit around waiting for someone to tell her what to do. Duh, there was nobody there on this island. So she started moving. She gave herself a task, caring for a baby gosling. It just kind of landed in her lap, and so she took it upon herself. And so what she ended up doing was breaking down this task into manageable steps. And again, lesson number 1, that's exactly what we need to do when we feel overwhelmed, when we're not sure which direction to go into. And I don't think I need to tell you that sitting at home, scrolling on social media, telling yourself that you wish you had more friends is what's going to actually get you to make friends, right? That's not taking action. That's just wishful thinking. Action involves reaching out, sending out that text, replying, saying yes to the invitation, and actually showing up. I know there's been a lot of discussion around the fact that we say yes to things, we confirm we're going to be there, and then the day of or the hour of, we cancel. And so there's no accountability anymore. Friendships are just falling apart because people are just not accountable. They're not taking action on the last step, which is the most crucial one. And especially when it feels uncomfortable, you just have to figure it out on the way. That actually leads me to lesson number 2. Break down the big goal into small subtasks. Roz didn't just wake up one day and say, oh, let's get this gosling ready to fly thousands of miles so it's, migrating over the winter. No, she started small because that little baby gosling had no concept of life or how to do anything. It didn't have parents to teach it what to do. So Roz was basically a stand-in for his parents. So she had to teach him how to eat, she had to teach him how to swim, and then she had to teach him how to fly. And that's how growth works. You don't just jump straight into giving a TED talk. If speaking up in meetings terrifies you, maybe your first step would be to simply raise your hand or introduce yourself to a group or to someone new. So each subtask under this umbrella goal matters significantly. Now, while Roz was raising this gosling, something else was happening in the background. The animals on the island hated her. And I mean, I don't blame them if you think about it. You have this monstrous metal thing just landing in your home, basically on your land. It doesn't speak your language. It's making noises. It's running all over the place. That's pretty terrifying. You're not going to enjoy that. You're going to think, threat, threat, threat. How do we take this threat down? So you can imagine that the animals were grouping together, congregating to find a way to kill this monster, basically. Luckily for her, she ended up making a friend, right? Whatever the circumstances of that relationship and why that came to be, that's not for me to discuss here, but she ended up making friends with the fox, who was also an outcast because, well, he was trying to eat everyone's baby. And you can imagine that's also a threat for these animals. But when the winter came and the storm hit, Roz made a choice. She went out with that fox by her side to save every animal that was trapped under the snow, even the ones that didn't like her, right? So a huge snowstorm, everyone was frozen. She was not impacted by it, and she just went out of her way to go find all these little animals and bring them into her hut next to the cozy fire. And that's where we find lesson number 3, that kindness is the only way forward. Roz could have stayed cozy in her hut by the fire with her friend. She could have, and the gosling, because she could have just said, well, they never really liked me anyway, so why would I help them? But instead, she asked, what good does it do to be the last one standing? Because the fox was like, why are we bothering? Why are we putting our lives in danger? But the robot was like, no, we have to. We need to do the right thing. What's the point of being the only ones here? And that's really powerful because in our own lives, we often let resentment, grudges, or fear stop us from connecting. But kindness, even to the people who may never understand us, opens doors. It builds bridges. And sometimes it turns enemies into protectors, into friends, which is what we see happening in the movie with Roz, where the animals turn out to absolutely love her and do everything they can to protect her. Moving on to lesson number 4. We must continually reprogram ourselves in order to thrive and grow. So Roz, being the robot that she was never programmed to raise a gosling or to survive on an island on her own, or to learn the language of the animals, which she taught herself to, or to bring predator and prey under the same roof successfully. But she did it anyway. She rewrote her code completely in order to survive in this environment. And that's what we sometimes have to do also. And it doesn't have to be at the detriment of who we are, our personality, our experience, our background, so on and so forth. Reprogramming does not mean that you are going to be a new program or a new person, what have you. It just means tweaking the settings, which in our case is our mindset, right? We're not robots. So we have to, tackle old shame, old beliefs, the I'm not good enough spiel script that we continuously run through, right? But reprogramming in itself can be messy. It can be uncomfortable because you might tweak the wrong settings, or you might find out that you had some settings or some pieces of code that were so hard coded in there that it's very difficult to rearrange, to tweak, or to come up with a new set of instructions. But we have to keep trying because it's the only way forward. Now, finally, we get to the last lesson, lesson number 5. Don't wait to be understood to belong. Roz was never fully understood by the animals. She never will be. It's practically impossible. Two different worlds. One is flesh, one is metal. It's just not going to happen. But they found a way to coexist. And each one in their own, right? When you think about the animals and also Roz, they were able to find homeostasis. They were able to find common ground. They were able to find comfort and solace in each other, but also in the environment that they were building together. And, when the other robots, because at some point, the other robots that are, at the factories or the company that's in charge of the Roz line, it sent a bunch of other robots to come and retrieve her from the island because she had a tracking device on her. And so when they came to get her, she realized that she didn't belong with them anymore. She didn't connect with them. She looked like them, certainly. She had the same look, the same settings, the same insides, but she couldn't connect with them, which goes to show that sometimes you will belong in a place that you didn't think you ever would. She didn't need a perfect understanding. She didn't need everyone around her to understand where she came from and what made her her or how she functions or what have you in order to feel at home, because she chose her home. She chose the island. She chose the animals. She chose connection, even if it looked different, even if it wasn't what she initially was looking for. And so sometimes we dismiss people or cities or environments or jobs simply because we feel like we don't fit in, but we don't really try to see if we can belong the way that we are, but within this new system. You don't have to change to fit in. You can be yourself, but also feel like you belong there. And I think what Roz ended up doing is a perfect example and representation of this. And that's what I want you to take away from this particular lesson. Don't wait for the world to fully get you before you step into a community, a friendship, or a partnership or love. Because belonging isn't about being understood perfectly. That will never happen. It's about showing up anyway and finding connections with those who do love you, who care for you. And you can grow that way. And I think this is the biggest lesson of the movie and the book, is that belonging is something that you create, not something that is given to you. You don't just walk into a home and say, well, I belong here. I feel like I'm at home. Sometimes you fall into a place and it might not feel like it's fit for you, but give it a chance, give it a try, put in some effort, and you might find that it's exactly what you were missing and what you were looking for. So, to summarize the 5 lessons, take actions, break it down, be kind, right? Lead with kindness, be able to reprogram yourself, and then find a way to belong. They're the ones that hit the hardest for me as I was watching this movie. And they do tie so beautifully into what it means to live with social anxiety and still show up feeling worthy of love, connection, friendship, and to continuously believe that you do have self-worth, because your worthiness is never on the table. So if you haven't seen The Wild Robot, I really recommend you do. Go watch it. And when you do, look at it through your own lens first. See what you see, right? And ask yourself, what lessons are there here for me? And then maybe have my voice in the back of your head and be like, oh, I understand what she was saying. Maybe I can take this lesson with me. Maybe this is relevant to me. And I would love to hear if you do have any insight after watching that movie or even listening to this podcast episode. Because that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being here. And thank you for doing the hard, brave work of showing up for yourself, because no one else will. So until next time, remember, you are worth knowing.